Dr. Frasier Crane, looking like he's just stepped out of a Savile Row catalog, is already starting to wilt. His perfectly tailored linen suit is beginning to look less sophisticated traveler and more crumpled napkin. He's fanning himself with his passport, a look of sheer panic on his face, as he tries to locate their luggage on the carousel. You can just hear him, can't you? Good heavens, must everyone travel with a trunk the size of a small Fiat? It's a classic Frasier meltdown in the making, and we're only just getting started. Beside him, cool as a cucumber in a bowl of tzatziki, is Dr. Lilith Sternin. Honestly, this woman is a marvel. While Frasier is having a minor existential crisis, Lilith stands perfectly still, her posture impeccable, her black dress somehow repelling the Grecian heat. She's observing the chaos with the detached amusement of a scientist studying a particularly frantic ant farm. She hasn't even broken a sweat. You get the feeling she could psychoanalyze the entire baggage claim area without moving a muscle. She offers a single dry comment to Frasier, something like, "Frasier, your heightened state of anxiety is doing little to expedite the process. Perhaps you should try breathing. It's the kind of support only Lilith can provide, and it's brilliant." Then we have the rest of the gang. Martin Crane, bless him, is in his element. He's already made friends with a security guard, probably bonding over a shared love for comfortable shoes and complaining about their kids. He's got his trusty cane. Eddie is safely with a sitter back in Seattle, and he's wearing a Hawaiian shirt that's so loud it's competing with the airport announcements. He keeps pointing at things, completely unfazed by the madness. "Hey Fraz, look at that! They sell olives right here in the terminal!" We gotta get some of those for the hotel. You just have to love his simple, straightforward joy. He's the perfect antidote to his son's high-strung antics. And rounding out our little troupe are Niles and Daphne. Niles, poor dear, looks even more distressed than Frasier. He's probably worried about germs, crowds, and the structural integrity of the luggage carousel. He's clutching a bottle of hand sanitizer like it's a holy relic, dabbing it on his palms every 30 seconds. Daphne, on the other hand, is a ray of sunshine. She's practically vibrating with excitement, her eyes wide as she takes it all in. She's already picturing the wedding, the flowers, the romance. She gives Niles' arm a reassuring squeeze and says, "Oh, isn't it all so romantic, Dr. Crane? Just think, in a few days your brother will be a married man again." The look on Niles' face is a picture, a mix of love for Daphne and sheer terror at the thought of the impending nuptials. What a group. So, they've survived the airport, barely. Now it's time for the next leg of the journey. A short flight from Athens to the island of Santorini. You'd think this would be the easy part, right? A quick hop over the Aegean Sea. But with this lot, nothing is ever simple. They board the small propeller plane and the differing personalities are immediately on full display. Frasier, ever the snob, is inspecting his seat with a look of deep suspicion, as if he expects it to have been previously occupied by a farm animal. He's probably muttering about the lack of a first-class cabin and the insufficient legroom for his undoubtedly refined trousers. It's a tight squeeze, and he is not a happy camper. Meanwhile, Niles has gone into full-blown panic mode. The small plane, the slight turbulence, the proximity to so many strangers, it's his worst nightmare come to life. He's gripping the armrest so tightly his knuckles have turned white. He keeps asking Daphne, "Are you sure these smaller aircraft are statistically as safe?" I read a study once. Daphne, ever the patient soul, just pats his hand and offers him a mint. "Don't you worry, Dr. Crane," she coos in her lovely Mancunian accent. "It's all part of the adventure. Just think of the beautiful white houses and the blue sea we're about to see." She's trying her best to calm him, but Niles is already mentally cataloging the location of every emergency exit. Martin, of course, is having the time of his life. He's got the window seat and is pointing out every little island they fly over, making up names for them. "Hey, look, that one looks like a pork chop," he exclaims, much to Frasier's embarrassment. He's struck up a conversation with the person next to him, sharing stories about his days on the police force. During the in-flight snack service, he's absolutely delighted by the small bag of olives he receives. He holds it up for everyone to see. "See, Fraz? I told you they have the best olives here." Frasier just sinks lower in his seat, wishing he could become invisible. And Lilith? Oh, Lilith is a rock. She sits with a book in her lap, completely unperturbed by the rattling of the plane or Niles's quiet whimpers. She turns a page with slow, deliberate precision. At one point, the plane hits a small pocket of air and dips suddenly. Niles lets out a tiny squeak. Without even looking up from her book, Lilith says in her calm, monotone voice, "The probability of a catastrophic failure on a flight of this duration is 0.00013%, Niles. Your resting heart rate is a far more immediate threat. It's so perfectly Lilith, cold, factual, and somehow, in its own strange way, incredibly reassuring. The flight to paradise is well and truly underway." Right, they've landed in Santorini. The view is stunning, isn't it? White buildings clinging to the cliffs, a sea so blue it hurts your eyes. It's picture perfect. But to get from the port up to the cliff-top village of Fira, where the chapel is, you have to take a cable car. And this isn't just any cable car. It's a small box, dangling hundreds of feet above the water. For most people, it's a scenic, thrilling ride. For our Seattle-based friends, it's another circle of psychological torment. Frasier, who has a well-documented fear of heights, is trying to play it cool, but his face is pale. He's attempting to appreciate the architecture, saying things like, "My, what a remarkable example of Cycladic engineering," but his voice is an octave higher than usual. Niles, as you can imagine, is not coping well at all. He's standing rigid in the corner of the car, eyes squeezed shut, refusing to look out the window. He's muttering about load-bearing capacities and wind shear. "Daphne, my love," he whispers, "perhaps we should have considered the donkeys. They seem so much more geologically stable." Daphne, bless her heart, is trying to be the brave one for him. She's looking out at the incredible vista, pointing things out. "Oh, look, Dr. Crane! You can see our hotel from here! And there's the chapel!" But even her cheerful demeanor is starting to crack a little as the car sways gently in the breeze. She's holding on to Niles's arm as much for her own comfort as for his. Martin is the only one truly enjoying the ride. He's got his face pressed against the glass like a kid at a sweet shop. "Holy cow, you can see all the way to the bottom," he exclaims with a huge grin. "This beats the heck out of the Space Needle." He's completely oblivious to the nervous tension radiating from his sons. He gives the side of the car a friendly pat, which causes it to wobble slightly and sends Niles into a fresh wave of quiet panic. Frasier shoots him a look that could curdle milk, but Martin just chuckles, lost in the beauty of it all. He's a simple man in a complex world, and right now that's a massive advantage. And then, it happens. Just as they reach the halfway point, a low, deep rumble echoes from across the caldera. It's the volcano. A plume of steam and a little puff of gray smoke rises from the crater. The cable car gives a sudden jolt. For a moment, everyone freezes. Lilith, who has been silently observing the group dynamics, is the first to speak. She looks towards the volcano with a flicker of academic interest. "Fascinating," she says, her voice as steady as ever. "A minor phreatic eruption, the interaction of magma with groundwater." Frasier turns to her, his eyes wide with terror. "Lilith, for the love of God, can you not be a scientist for 2 minutes and just be scared like a normal person?" The rumble fades, the car continues its journey upwards, but the mood has definitely shifted. The beautiful island suddenly feels a little more menacing. So they've made it to the top of the cliff, hearts still pounding from the volcanic welcome. To calm their nerves before the wedding rehearsal, they decide to do a bit of shopping in the winding, whitewashed streets of Fira. The place is gorgeous, a maze of little boutiques, art galleries, and cafes, all with breathtaking views of the sea. It's a shopper's paradise, but for our group, it's yet another opportunity for their personalities to clash in the most hilarious way. Daphne is in heaven. The wedding is on her mind, and every shop window is filled with possibilities. She's darting from one place to another, her excitement infectious. "Oh, look! These little almond sweets would be perfect for wedding favors. And these hand-painted ceramics for the table." Frasier is trying to get into the spirit of things, attempting to find a suitably sophisticated souvenir. He dismisses most of the shops as being too touristy, of course. Good heavens, another t-shirt with a cartoon donkey on it. Is there no appreciation for genuine Hellenic artistry? He eventually finds a gallery selling what he deems to be authentic reproductions of ancient pottery. He picks up a vase, studying it with intense concentration. Now this, he declares to anyone who will listen, this has the simple, elegant lines of the Minoan period. It speaks of a civilization in tune with the sea, with nature, with... He's in full lecture mode, completely lost in his own world of cultural pretension. Martin, meanwhile, has a one-track mind. He's on a quest for the perfect olive. He bypasses all the jewelry stores and art galleries and makes a beeline for a small deli. The owner, a friendly old man with a magnificent mustache, offers him samples. Martin's face lights up. He tries one, then another, his expression one of pure bliss. "These are the ones, Fraz, these are the ones I was telling you about," he shouts across the cobblestone street. He buys a huge jar, cradling it like a precious treasure. He couldn't be happier. It's a simple pleasure. But for Martin, it's what this whole trip is about. Good food, good weather, and a bit of peace and quiet away from his fussy sons. And what about Lilith? She's not interested in souvenirs or snacks. She moves through the crowds with a quiet purpose. She eventually finds a small, dusty bookstore tucked away in a side alley. Inside, she spends a long time browsing the shelves filled with Greek philosophy and history. After much consideration, she purchases a beautifully bound, leather-clad copy of Plato's Symposium, a dialogue on the nature of love. She doesn't say who it's for, but she holds it with a thoughtful, almost gentle expression. It's a gift that is so perfectly her intellectual, meaningful, and deeply romantic in its own unique academic way. It's a quiet moment, a hint of the deep affection that still exists between her and Frasier, hidden beneath all the layers of sarcasm and analysis. Later that evening, the group gathers for dinner at a taverna overlooking the caldera. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It's meant to be a calm, reflective moment before the big day. The wine is flowing, a crisp, local Assyrtiko that even Frasier has to admit is perfectly acceptable. The mood is light and everyone is starting to relax. They're sharing stories, laughing, and for a moment it feels like everything is going to be perfect. The wedding will happen. Frasier and Lilith will find their happiness, and all will be right with the world. But this is the Crane family, so you know that peace and quiet can only last for so long before someone says something utterly ridiculous. Feeling expansive from the wine and the beautiful scenery, Martin decides to share a bit of classical wisdom he picked up from a travel guide. He raises his glass, trying to look profound. "You know," he begins, getting everyone's attention, being here in Greece, it really makes you think. It reminds me of that famous line from Homer's. Frasier and Niles exchange a wary glance. They know this can't possibly end well. Martin clears his throat, takes a deep breath, and declares with great confidence, "Beware of Greeks bearing gifts." He beams, incredibly proud of himself for his literary contribution. There is a moment of stunned silence around the table. Daphne looks confused. Lilith raises a single, perfect eyebrow. Frasier's face goes through about 5 different emotions at once. Confusion, disbelief, embarrassment, and finally, resignation. He puts his head in his hands and lets out a long, weary sigh. Niles is the first to speak, his voice gentle but firm. "Dad," he says, "that's by Virgil, a Roman poet, and it's about the Trojan horse." He says it with the pained patience of a man who has had to correct his father on matters of history, art, and literature for his entire life. Martin just blinks, completely unfazed. "Roman, Greek, what's the difference? They were all wearing togas, weren't they?" he says with a shrug, taking another large gulp of wine. And just like that, the tension breaks. Frasier starts to chuckle, a low, rumbling laugh that soon turns into a full-on belly laugh. Niles cracks a smile, Daphne giggles, and even Lilith's lips twitch upwards in a rare display of amusement. It's such a perfect Martin moment, so wrong, yet so delivered with such confidence that you can't help but love him for it. The laughter echoes across the terrace, a moment of pure, unscripted joy that is more memorable than any perfectly quoted line of poetry could ever be. The wedding day has arrived. The setting is absolutely idyllic. A tiny blue dome chapel perched right on the edge of the cliff. The Aegean Sea stretches out below, sparkling under the brilliant sun. Guests have been flown in. Everyone is dressed in their finest. Frasier stands at the altar looking uncharacteristically nervous but also incredibly happy. He adjusts his bow tie for the 10th time. Lilith walks down the aisle looking stunning and serene in a simple, elegant white dress. For a fleeting moment, everything is perfect. It's the wedding they've both, in their own ways, always dreamed of. Beautiful, sophisticated, and blessedly free of Maris-related drama. The Greek Orthodox priest begins the ceremony, his voice chanting the ancient, beautiful words of the service. Frasier and Lilith hold hands, their fingers intertwined. They exchange a look, a small shared smile that speaks volumes. It's a look that says, "We've been through so much but we made it. Here we are." Niles, standing beside Frasier as his best man, dabs a tear from his eye with a silk handkerchief. Daphne, in the front row, is openly weeping with joy. Even Martin looks emotional, a proud, happy expression on his face. It's a truly moving scene, a culmination of years of on-again, off-again romance. They begin to exchange their vows. Frasier goes first, his voice thick with emotion as he speaks of second chances and enduring love. "Lilith," he begins, "from the moment I first met you, you have challenged me, you have exasperated me, and you have made me a better man." It's heartfelt and eloquent. Lilith's turn comes, and she speaks with her trademark precision but with an undercurrent of deep affection. "Frasier," she says, "our journey has been illogical, and our compatibility is by all metrics statistically improbable. And yet, I have concluded that my life is infinitely more interesting with you in it. It's the most romantic thing she's ever said." And then, just as the priest raises the wedding crowns, or Stephana, to place upon their heads, the ground gives a violent shudder. It's much stronger than the rumble from the cable car ride. The volcano, which has been quietly steaming all day, decides that this is the perfect moment for a grand gesture. With a deafening roar, it erupts, sending a massive plume of gray ash and smoke thousands of feet into the sky. The beautiful blue sky is instantly blotted out. The guests gasp in unison. The priest freezes, the crowns held aloft. Frasier and Lilith just stare at the volcano, then at each other in utter disbelief. Of all the things that could go wrong at a Frasier Crane event, a volcanic eruption has to be the most dramatic. Absolute chaos erupts at the chapel. The magnificent plume of ash starts to drift over the island, and a light gray powder begins to fall like a bizarre apocalyptic snow. The wedding guests, who were moments ago sipping champagne, are now shrieking and running for cover. The perfectly arranged white flowers are now dusted in gray. The wedding cake looks like a science experiment gone wrong. It's a complete disaster. Frasier's dream of a perfect, elegant, sophisticated wedding is literally turning to dust before his very eyes. His face is a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. You can see him thinking, "Why does this always happen to me?" But then, something amazing happens. In the midst of the panic, our little group pulls together. Martin, ever the practical ex-cop, immediately takes charge. "All right, everybody, stay calm. Let's get inside the chapel, out of this stuff," he barks, his voice cutting through the noise. He starts herding the panicked guests like a seasoned pro. Daphne, forgetting her own fear, starts comforting a crying bridesmaid, using her own shawl to cover the woman's head. She's a natural caregiver, and her calm, reassuring presence has an immediate effect on those around her. She moves through the crowd, a little beacon of Mancunian strength. Niles, despite his own neuroses, finds his courage. He sees an elderly guest struggling to breathe in the ashy air. Without a second thought, he whips out one of his pristine, monogrammed handkerchiefs, dips it in a glass of water, and gives it to the man to hold over his mouth. "Breathe through this," he instructs, his voice steady. "It will filter out the larger particles." It's a moment of pure, selfless heroism from the most unlikely of heroes. He's putting someone else's well-being before his own fear of germs and chaos, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And what of our bride and groom? They stand amidst the swirling ash, their perfect wedding attire now looking decidedly gray. They look at the chaos, at the ruined decorations, at their panicked guests. They look at the volcano still puffing away proudly in the distance, and then they look at each other. The sheer absurdity of the situation hits them both at the same time. A slow smile spreads across Frasier's face, followed by Lilith's, and then they start to laugh. Not a small chuckle, but a deep, helpless, liberating laugh. They laugh at their terrible luck, at the universe's impeccable comic timing, and at the fact that, of course, their wedding would be interrupted by a volcano. In that moment of shared laughter, surrounded by ash and chaos, they seem closer than ever. The eruption subsides, leaving the island coated in a fine layer of gray ash. The wedding is, needless to say, officially off. The guests are being looked after, and a sense of calm has returned. Our group finds themselves back at the taverna from the night before, sitting at the same table, which a waiter has kindly wiped clean for them. The sky is still hazy, and the sunset is a strange, diffused orange through the volcanic dust. The ruined wedding clothes have been discarded in favor of more comfortable attire. Martin has his Hawaiian shirt back on. It's a surreal, quiet moment after the madness of the afternoon. Frasier sits there, swirling the wine in his glass, a thoughtful expression on his face. You'd expect him to be devastated, to be launching into one of his classic tirades about his cursed existence. But he's surprisingly serene. He looks at Lilith, who is watching him with her usual unreadable expression. "Well," Frasier says with a wry smile, "I suppose that's one for the memoirs." Not many people can say their wedding was postponed due to a force of nature. There's no anger in his voice, just a sense of weary amusement. The disaster was so epic, so far beyond his control that it's almost liberating. There's no one to blame, nothing to fix. It just is. Lilith reaches across the table and places her hand on his. It's a simple, gentle gesture, but it's full of meaning. "Frasier," she says, her voice soft. "Perhaps the universe is telling us something, that we don't need the grand gesture. We don't need the perfect cliffside chapel or the blue-domed church." She looks around at their little group, at Martin happily munching on his jar of olives, at Daphne and Niles holding hands under the table. "Maybe all we need is this, our family, our friends." She pauses and a genuine warm smile lights up her face. "Let's just go home. We'll go to the courthouse. It will be simple, quiet, and far less geologically volatile." A wave of relief and happiness washes over Frasier's face. He squeezes her hand. "Lilith Sternin, you are, as always, infuriatingly correct. The idea of a simple, no-fuss wedding back in Seattle suddenly sounds like the most romantic thing in the world." He raises his glass. "To Seattle," he says. "And to second chances. And third chances. And, if necessary, fourth chances." Everyone at the table raises their glass and toasts. It's a moment of quiet hope and optimism, born from the ashes of their disastrous, wonderful, unforgettable Greek adventure. They didn't get the wedding they planned, but they found something much more important. As the toast concludes, a comfortable silence settles over the table. They sip their wine, watching the last of the dusty light fade from the sky. The shared experience, the sheer ridiculousness of it all, has bonded them in a new way. They survived a volcanic eruption together. After that, what's a little family dinner? Martin leans back in his chair, patting his full stomach contentedly. "You know," he says, "for a disaster, this turned out pretty good. The food's great, and I've got enough olives to last me till Christmas." His simple, grounded perspective is, as always, the perfect anchor in the sea of Crane family drama. Daphne sighs happily, resting her head on Niles's shoulder. "It was almost the most romantic wedding I've ever been to," she says dreamily. "Even with all the ash and shouting, there was something very dramatic about it all, like one of those old movies." She looks at Frasier and Lilith with genuine affection. "I'm so happy for you both. A courthouse wedding will be just lovely." Her sincere, optimistic outlook helps to solidify the group's new plan. She makes it sound not like a consolation prize, but like the perfect, intimate celebration it ought to be. Frasier smiles, feeling a sense of peace he hasn't felt in a long time. "Thank you, Daphne. I think you're right." He looks at Lilith, his heart full. The stress of planning the perfect ostentatious wedding has vanished, replaced by the simple, happy anticipation of just being married to the woman he loves. No pomp, no circumstance, just a quiet commitment. It's what he should have wanted all along. The volcano, in its own destructive way, did them a huge favor. It stripped away all the non-essential, superficial nonsense and left them with what truly mattered: each other. Just then Niles, who has been quietly contemplating the situation, clears his throat. He adjusts his cuffs and sits up a little straighter, a thoughtful look on his face. "You know," he says, "if you're considering a simpler venue for the next attempt, might I make a suggestion?" Everyone turns to look at him, curious. Niles pauses for dramatic effect before delivering his punchline. "I hear there's a lovely little-known spot that's incredibly private, seismically stable, and has excellent security." He leans forward, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. "It's called my panic room." The table erupts in laughter once more, the perfect, funny, and utterly fitting end to their chaotic Greek Odyssey.